things are really not going well with Aave. There's been a major announcement that, in my opinion, will have a real impact on the future of Aave, on what's going to happen over the next few weeks, the next few months, and even the next few years. I'm going to break all of that down for you. We're also going to talk about a lot of other things. It's not just Aave. We'll cover tariffs in the United States, a setback for Donald Trump. We'll also talk about Ripple and especially the Clarity Act in the US. I've got a lot to go through. I honestly don't even know where to start. So let's begin with the crypto market update. First of all, hello everyone and welcome to Crypto Red, the crypto news channel. The price of BCC is sitting around 67,000 Ether at slightly under $2,000. I feel like it's the same thing every single day. It's not moving that much now. Well, let's talk about Donald Trump. The US Supreme Court has just dealt a setback to Donald Trump by ruling that a number of tariffs he had put in place are not legal and must be reimbursed. We're talking about $150 billion now. It's not all the tariffs, let's be clear. It's only certain ones that fall under a specific legal framework. But overall, we're still looking at over $150 billion that will need to be repaid. Other tariffs are not affected, so honestly, it's a bit of mess. BTC moved slightly on the news, but nothing shocking. Overall, the market expects Trump to find an alternative, and in fact, he already said he's thinking about a backup plan for those tariffs. I think the simplest solution would be for Congress to pass a law officially approving those tariffs that would eliminate the legal issue. And since he does control Congress, it might go through. We'll know more soon, but for now, if you look at the probabilities on Polymarket, for example, there's only about 30% chance that Trump, or rather the United States, will actually have to reimburse the tariffs that were implemented. Now, like I told you, something is happening around Aave, and in my opinion, it's pretty critical. We've talked a lot about Aave recently, especially with the price dropping significantly. We saw the market cap flirt with $6 billion. Now we're well below $2 billion, around $1.7 billion. Just as a reminder, with Aave, you have the Decentralized Autonomous Organization, the DAO, which is controlled by the Aave token holders. When you buy Aave tokens, you're basically buying a share of the DAO, of the Decentralized Autonomous Organization. Then you have Aave Labs. Aave Labs is the company funded by the creator of Aave, Stani, which he continues to develop Aave. And there's been tension, almost a conflict between Aave Labs and the DAO. The tension is over who should control the majority of Aave's revenue. And there's a third entity that we haven't talked much about until now, BGD Labs. BGD Labs is the company funded by Aave's former CTO, who joined Aave back in 2018, right after the ICO. Technically speaking, these guys are extremely strong. I mean, really, really strong. They contributed to the overwhelming majority of Aave V3, the current version of Aave, the one that really exploded in terms of TVL and adoption. They're behind the technical architecture, the security aspects of Aave V3. They're very, very good. And now BGD Labs had just announced that they're going to stop contributing to Aave. They're simply leaving Aave after 4 years, developing a ton of core features. We're talking about Aave V3, like I mentioned, but also Umbrella, their protection and staking system. They worked on many critical components that generates a lot of value and revenue for Aave. But now they're basically saying, we can't keep working like this. The current situation doesn't allow it because Aave Labs is taking more and more power. Aave Labs has something very specific. They control the brand. They own the trademark. They control the social media accounts. So basically, they're the ones controlling the whole narrative. Little by little, Aave Labs have been taking more and more space. And more importantly, they've developed the new version of Aave, what they call Aave V4. And V4 was not developed by BGD Labs, only by Aave Labs. It was developed, like I said, by Aave Labs. They did it on their own, basically saying, yeah, you can give us recommendation if you want, but it's just free advice. We're the ones building it. We're the ones deciding. At the same time, they've been heavily criticizing V3, Aave V3, which is the current version, the one that generates the most money right now, all the money. And they said that given what's happening right now at BGD Labs, with Aave Labs gaining more and more power and using also its voting rights to push proposals through, they can't continue like this. BGD Labs has to stop. So they decide to completely leave Aave. They said they'll still support V3 if needed, especially from a security standpoint. In fact, they even made a proposal of $100,000 per month to help maintain V3 from a security perspective, a sort of retainer. But they were very clear. They're stopping their involvement with Aave. For them, it's no longer possible to continue. And honestly, this is pretty catastrophic. We're talking about an entity that is extremely strong technically, and in my opinion, necessary for Aave in the long term from a technical standpoint. Now V4 is coming, and there's no doubt that Aave Labs is basically alone at the wheel. V4 hasn't been developed at all by BGD Labs, it's entirely developed by Aave Labs, and what people need to understand is that a new version like V4 is new code, it's fresh code, it hasn't been battle tested a lot, it hasn't stood the test of time, it's almost like a brand new protocol in itself. So you can't just say, oh, it's secure because it's always been secure. No, this is new code. Because of that, Aave kind of lose part of its edge compared to Morpho. Have Morpho, for example, which arguably has more battle-tested code that has been live longer than this new version of Aave that isn't live yet. So people are questioning V4 and especially why Aave Labs is pushing this new version so aggressively. The token has dropped quite a lot recently, quite a bit recently. A lot of people on social media are saying this is pretty catastrophic, that it feels like there's no real DAO anymore, that Aave Labs is basically doing whatever it wants. And the next step, we'll see what happens, but it's very likely that the ACI, the Aave Chain initiative led by Mark Zeller, might stop working with Aave because they're strongly opposed to Aave Labs. So this could create more issues very soon. And actually, I saw something quite impressive. You have Mark Zeller spoke about everything that's happening with BGD Labs, and he made another remark. He said that he noticed that 1,600 Aave tokens had been sold by Aave Labs and transferred to Kraken. Now, honestly, 1,600 Aave is not much. It's $2,000, so it's not huge for Aave Labs. But Stani, the founder of Aave, said, no, that's not true. We never sold that. That's nonsense. And Mark Zeller responded, no, that's nonsense. We have the proof. It's clearly you. Mark also said openly that he personally rebalanced part of his portfolio because of Aave Labs and the action they took around Aave, which led to BGD Labs leaving. So he admitted that he sold part of his Aave position. Now look at who responded to clarify things. Colton, who also works at Aave, he explained that Stanley had actually misunderstood. He thought the 1,600 token referred to the 16,000 Aave tokens that Mark Zeller had just sold. So according to someone working at Aave, Mark Zeller just sold 6,000 Aave tokens. 16,000 Aave tokens. That's about $2 million. I don't know how big that is relative to his total position, but it's definitely not negligible. So we're talking about the person leading the Aave Chain initiative, potentially selling a significant amount of Aave right after this announcement. That tells you a lot about the level of confidence in Aave, and he's leading in sort of leading the Aave DAO. I'm saying this again. Mark Zeller is leading the Aave Chain initiative, and he just sold $2 million worth of Aave. In my opinion, in the coming days or week, we could very well see the Aave initiative leaving Aave also, like BGD Labs, or Mark Zeller stepping away for now. But as of now, apparently he just sold a significant amount of Aave token. The source is Colton, who works at Aave. I did not invent this, so he's the one saying this. So clearly, I think this is a valid reason to start questioning Aave's future. If you're exposed to Aave, then you really need to take a step back and think about it. You need to ask yourself, what's actually happening here? What does the future of Aave really look like? That's a different question altogether. Of course, they still have the brand image. The general public, in a way, doesn't really know anything about all of this. And if Aave manages to become even more integrated through the apps they've launched on Google Play Store and Apple Store, that could still bring a lot of more users. But personally, I have much less confidence now in the technical side of Aave since the departure of BGD Labs. I also have less confidence in the decentralization aspect of Aave. When you look closely, Aave Labs control a very large share of the voting power, and can almost decide the future of Aave on its own. And for me, those 2 points are a real problem. That's why, for example, I prefer a competitor like Morpho. There's only one token, the Morpho token. There isn't any traditional company developing behind the scene that have some sort of other equity. There's an association, a non-profit that owns 100% of the structure that manages things, but the governance of Morpho is truly driven by the Morpho token. It's a single token model, and I prefer that approach. There's much less governance drama, far fewer parameters to tweak. It's a simpler overall protocol, and in the long run, I think it's more resilient. Morpho's approach feels more sustainable to me than Aave's approach, which in my opinion is increasingly being controlled by a single entity. That's what I want to say. That's what I wanted to say about Aave. This topic really fascinates me, decentralized finance, Aave, all this protocol. I studied them in detail, and I find this really to be like the future of finance. So it's essential for me that this future of finance is really decentralized and not controlled by one entity like it's the case for Aave. Let's talk about the Clarity Act. In the new United States legislation apparently has about 70% chance of passing. That's significant. In fact, in recent days, the probability even went above 80%. The president of Ripple said there's even 90% chance it could pass by April. So it looks like there's some kind of agreement, or at least serious discussion moving forward between banks and crypto companies. There's a strong chance it get approved, and I think that could really support cryptocurrency over the medium to long term, especially going on into 2026. Next, let's talk about Ripple and Société Générale. Société Générale is going to deploy its stablecoin on Ripple, on the Ripple blockchain. It's called the Euro convertible coin, and it's coming to the XRP Ledger. That's a nice boost for Ripple, a new stablecoin, and one of the biggest banks in France is choosing Ripple to launch on this blockchain, the third blockchain after Ethereum and Solana. This stablecoin is already integrated into DeFi. You can find it on Morpho, on Uniswap, on Ethereum. And still on the topic of French banks, we have BNP Paribas, which is also a major bank in France. This time, they just announced they're launching a tokenized fund on the Ethereum blockchain, a public blockchain. And that's extremely interesting because previously they were using a private blockchain. Now they're moving to a public one, and they're realizing they can benefit from everything a public blockchain offers. Ethereum has been running for over 10 years without a major issue. It works well. Fees are relatively low, and institutions like this. Transactions are fast, around 12 seconds between blocks. So for banks, 12 seconds or 13 seconds is extremely fast. On top of that, they still keep a permissioned layer. Only people approved by the bank will be able to access the tokenized fund. There's a whitelist system. It's similar to BlackRock's Beetle fund. You can't just go and buy it freely. You have to be whitelisted by BlackRock or by Securitize to interact with it. So we're seeing more and more institutions moving to public blockchain, especially Ethereum. And I find this new approach extremely interesting. We're no longer talking about private blockchains. The narrative is basically fading away. The future is public blockchains. And finally, speaking of Securitize and BlackRock, there's World Liberty Financial. News about it. It feels like every single day they make a new announcement. The latest one is that they're working with Securitize to tokenize debt, especially debt related to hotel in the Maldives. So yeah, Trump's group has hotels in the Maldives, and they're going to start tokenizing that debt on chain. Securitize worked with many different companies. It's not an exclusive partnership or anything like this, but still every day I see new announcements from World Liberty Financial. It feels like they're constantly trying to create the buzz to test different ideas, and the project is becoming more and more clear to me. I'm honestly struggling to understand what exactly World Liberty Financial is trying to build. It's quite strange. What was supposed to be a simple clone of Aave doesn't look like that at all anymore. Now the focus seems to be more on the stable coins and a series of alternative projects. That's what I wanted to share with you today regarding the latest crypto news. I hope you enjoyed the content. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you Monday for the next update. Bye-bye. Take care.